What's up, everybody? Welcome on into One Soccer Today. Andy, Ollie, and Neil with you here. We're all taking a deep breath. We've all digested the last month that was in the world of soccer between Euros and gentlemen, of course, Copa America and the Canadian men making it all the way to the semifinal. It was so much fun. Now we take a little bit of a breather before we get ready for the Olympics and we watch the Canadian women go on their Olympic title defense. But let's digest a little bit, and more in particular, guys, Jesse Marsch is like the Energizer Bunny because no sooner did Copa America end. He lands on Canadian soil. He makes his way to a CPL game. It was Forge Pacific. And then he goes on a media campaign trail. It's kind of like a politician campaign trail, but he's meeting with all different media. He's taking the time. He's showing that there's accessibility there. And then on top of that, guys, too, before he even catches a flight to go on over to Montreal, he met with a select group of fans as well, which was pretty cool. These were fans who bought tickets to Copa America. Then they entered a lottery system. Their names were drawn. They got to meet him as well as Kevin Blue. What do you make of this accessibility, Wheels, and even his eagerness to want to sit down with media and want to meet with fans?
I thought it came off very well, building off of his newfound popularity in this country based on the team's performance at Copa America. We were invited to an event on Monday, downtown Toronto. None of us kind of really knew what it was all about, but it turned out to be a smash hit, in my opinion, bringing together media types, sponsors, and fans just to engage, get together, talk about the game, talk about the team. We need more of this to kind of bring people together, especially the sponsorship element. Kevin Blue comes from a background where fundraising is his thing. I think what he will find as he does this cross-Canada tour is that fundraising for soccer in this country is a little bit different from golf, but that doesn't mean that it can't be successful in its own way. And I thought it stood out. Wasn't just that event. It wasn't just with interviews like with One Soccer, yourself, Andy, with CBC. It was also the fact that they were having lunches with people that could be donors or could be sponsors that want to get more involved. This is how you bring money, the finances, and the long-term backing to the program. And they need to be assured that things are in a good place, which I think that we working on the day-to-day understand the potential that this has and how some of the negative press that's come their way hasn't been all that deserving. I think in a lot of our opinion as well. So I think that kind of pulling back the curtain, introducing people to Jesse Marsch, not just the coach, but the man. He's an extraordinarily impressive individual. He's very intelligent. He's engaging. He's really good with people, and he's authentic too, right? Like that's the one thing that comes across. So the fact that he was willing to go out and do this, he fully acknowledged to me in my conversation with him. He's like, look, obviously my main job is working with the players on the field and making sure that the team is as good as possible and is going in the right direction and is in a good place. But part of my job is to grow Canadian soccer as well and really be part of the solution, which is so refreshing to hear from me. So I give him and the team around him at Canada Soccer a lot of credit, trying something different, and hopefully this will bring different results.
Ollie.
Yeah, I give him a lot of credit for doing the amount of media that he's doing. Like there are times, especially after a stretch like the Copa America, where literally the last thing I want to do is be talking about football, and he seems to just have a never-ending supply of opinions and things to say. So and the valuable things to say, I think, that have obviously got people talking about the game in a wider sense. So that's great. I would also just say, and we was touched on it, I do think this is Marsch is almost kind of the symptom rather than the cause of this in some ways. Like I think part of the reason why Jesse Marsch got the job is because he is so good at this stuff, and it indicates to me within Canada Soccer more of a willingness and a desire and a need really to put themselves out there, to be talking to people, whether it's fans, whether it's media, whether it's sponsors, and to actually show people why they should be getting behind this team, both from a support and a financial perspective, as opposed to, the attitude we have seen in previous years, where there's been some exceptions within Canada Soccer. People have tried to get, to make things more open, to do more media, to get more out there. But I think at times as well, there's been a lot of people who have treated it as a chore, to be honest, engaging with the outside world. And that seems to be quite a distant, a very different approach from the one we're seeing now under Kevin Blue as the leader of this organization. So it's great to see. I think it's going to do the program and Canada soccer as a whole, the world of goods, to be engaging like this, and long may it continue.
Valid thing to point out. You're right there, Ollie, because Kevin Blue, as we know, was appointed first. He was the one now put in charge of hiring a new manager, and he had to find that. And once you have somebody like him who just has this different approach and different attitude and different perspective, as well as your general secretary and CEO, he knew that he needed a coach like him. That isn't to say they didn't cast a wide net. They obviously tried to go for some big fish too, like a lot of the big names we heard about. Those rumors, like, they did reach out, but at the end of the day, it was Jesse Marsch who fit what Kevin Blue was trying to do, and now we're seeing that synergy.
But you got to be good. Your team needs to impress on the field to make all the rest of that work, Andy. So, like, what's on the field is first, and this is clearly part of his job description. Like, in these off times, to work towards the build. And he has a lot to learn still, catch up about Canada soccer, where we are at here in 2024. But this is how he learns, by getting in people's face and engaging.
Well, and so that leads to the next one, because he is learning, and he's already come up, with a couple opinions, of course. And he did say that, number one, he obviously hopes that Canada's run at Copa America will sway more dual Canadian nationals to actually join Canada, see how exciting this team is, how competitive they can be. But at the same time, when I had that chance to sit down and talk with him, he already said that scouting and recognizing Moise Bombito at the age of 23 is already too late. We've heard him say this already. We've heard him talk about like 17-year-olds. This is what he's looking at, right? Even when you're talking about CPL, and we know that they have things in place of under 21 minutes, but it's like getting those teenagers, by the time they're in their 20s, as Canadians, we're scouting them too late. So between 2026 World Cup, calling on more dual nationals to say, hey, Canada is a place, to choose. And in some way saying, hey, we've got to be better, with our scouting. Where do you think this leaves things, Ollie? Do you think this message is loud and clear as well within the Canadian soccer landscape?
Yeah, I think it's been clear for a while that talent identification needs to get a lot better. And, it's a challenge in a country this big that has had very little soccer infrastructure for a long time. I think the Canadian youth national teams filling out those youth squads have been pretty reliant on the MLS academies, and kind of trusted that those clubs have been able to identify the 20 best players in a particular age group in Ontario or Quebec or BC, and that has not always been the case. So I think
three Canadian MLS teams still, right? It's so small. 3 academies, that's it for our country.
Such a tiny picture of young talent across the country. So I think that's starting to change now. We're just hitting more places, right? With the CPL for starters, but particularly with League One. More players are going to be seen, more players are going to play within structure, within the kind of pathways that are being created in this country. And so hopefully will therefore be identified earlier as well. That's something that's going to take time. I don't know that that's going to have a huge impact ahead of the 2026 World Cup. That's a longer term picture, but of course, and anything to do with talent ID, whether it's young players in this country, whether it's dual nationals abroad, and there is a few interesting ones that could be potentially more impactful in the shorter term as well. Stuff like that is all things that I think people are well aware within soccer in Canada needs to improve, and Marsch is right to point it out.
Real?
Yeah, I mean, that's long-term being the case. I think part of that is also making sure that these young players get the best coaching possible. And I don't know if that's always the case. Like these MLS academies, and they've done a lot of good. They provide access to incredible facilities based upon, in comparison, what the standard is in other places across this country. But are they getting the highest standard of coaching possible? And what types of players are they looking at? And where are they casting those nets? And where do the gaps need to be filled? That's why the Canadian Premier League just plays a massive role in all of this. Different connections, different eyeballs, different access, different relationships with players. Like some of these players who come through, and Jesse Marsch's comments about Moise Bombito struck a chord with people that, this cannot happen to a player that's 23 now just kind of hitting his stride. But I mean, his story is a lot like a lot of other young players' stories who came through COVID during a difficult time and really didn't have a place to go. And although they were allocated and deemed a really good player, if you didn't fit in the academy with, the CF Montreal Academy in the province of Quebec, where did that leave you? How did you have access? Did you have access? And beyond that, Moise Bombito did a positional change changes position midstream, had to go to a community college, then NCAA, then the MLS Super Draft. So it's not just one tier, one level that's missing a player like that. It's multiple, and that includes on both sides of the border, by the way. So I just think that coaching relationships, being able to cast your net much wider, is going to pay dividends in the end. But I'll keep on saying it, Andy. It goes back to infrastructure. Where are our youth club teams playing? And what leagues are they playing? What players are they playing against? All of this is part of the equation. There's been a lot of really good, talented players that have come into MLS academies, and kind of their stock is, petered out to a certain degree because of the conditions that they're playing in, and maybe not the right opportunities presented itself. So each player will have its own path. It's making sure that we can recognize who those players are and figure out which path suits them best. So there's a lot of work to do on that front.
We'll next see the Canadian men in September 7th, 10th. As we know, they take on the USA and Mexico. So let's put a bow on this conversation by saying that they have now moved back to 40th in the rankings, according to FIFA, their highest since 2022. Ollie, too high, too low, just right.
What I'd say is I think there are more teams above them that I would fancy their chances against than there are teams below them that I would really fear. Like Venezuela 37. I think Canada is better than Venezuela on the basis of the game we've just seen. Panama 35. Qatar 34, I have no idea how they're still up there. Russia kind of sit there at 33 for obvious reasons, not really playing a lot of matches right now. And even Wales at 30, I think Canada would be, would give a decent match to. No disrespect to Wales, but I don't think they would go into that game fearing them. So 40, I think we can be pretty happy with that. But there's some teams above I'd be punching for if I'm Jesse Marsch and these Canadian players.
Okay.
I think the goal heading into 2026 to be top 25 in the world. That's where the bar is. And look, we look at these rankings sometimes, and when we don't like where Canada sits, then we're like, well, they're crap. They don't mean much. The FIFA ranking formula is garbage. And then when we raise, oh yeah, look at us. Like who are we around? So we kind of can't have it both ways. This is the system. This is where it's at. But I think it just provides a baseline. And I think that if Canada want to be in a position where they're taking seriously at the World Cup, then top 25 is where they need to set their sights. Is it within reach in that time? Sure. But look, it includes some really good, nations across Africa, across Europe, who stand in their way. It's not going to be easy. And it starts off with the upcoming window. United States, you need to start beating them. Mexico, you need to, they're going through a managerial change as well. You need to get the best of them. Panama, potentially upcoming as well. Another team that played in Copa America and another team that's ranked ahead of Canada. So one step at a time. It's not the be all end all, but I think it provides a good benchmark of where the team should look.
Does anyone actually know, and have they mastered and figured out how FIFA does their calculations? Do we know
Yes, I don't want to get into it though.
It's
versus Skilo versus Skilo versus.
To be fair to FIFA, like they're not perfect.
I wish it was a little higher.
So. They're not perfect, but they're a lot better than they used to be. So I don't ridicule them as much as
listen.
Used to be complete.
All
trash.
I know is that when Canada does well, I'm just like, yay! I know we're going up. I don't know, 3-5. Like we've got to be going up. That's all I know. I don't actually know the points and how that system works. I just know we're going up or we're going down based on certain performances. By how much? I couldn't tell you. Let's end things off, gentlemen, with our 20-bet top picks. "60 seconds. I want you to take me through who you've got for this weekend's CPL games. So let's rip through them. You have Vancouver, York United. Wheels.
Eagles, bounce back. Time to reset that. Let's go. Eagles, that's where the value is.
Ollie?
York United plus 190. They're the underdog in this game. I'm going to take them to keep rolling.
All right, Ollie, I'll stay with you. Ottawa, Valor.
Whenever odds go like plus 500 or above, I think the CPO is unpredictable enough that you should just take a flyer. So I'm taking Valor at plus 500.
Yeah, agreed. Just based upon the number.
All right, Wheels, Cavalry, Forge.
It's got to be Forge. I can't back Cavalry right now based on the current form. Forge is all the vibes right now. Let's go with Forge.
Ollie?
When Cavalry need one against Forge, they sometimes get it. So I'm going to take Cavalry.
I think it's going to be a good game no matter what. And you're right, Cavalry definitely needs it. Been a blast, guys. That's Ollie. That's Wheels. I'm Andy. Thanks for tuning in to One Sock today. See you next time.